Gonna tell you guys a quick story of how I was homeless. I know, I probably never mentioned that to you, did I? Yeah, I was homeless around the time this car was being built. So we're sitting here in my Lamborghini right now, and this happened when I was just starting basically my business, my pickup and dating business, and all that other fun stuff. That's Cash over here snoring. Cash and Gizmo are actually involved in this homeless story, so you're gonna want to hear this. My pug and my Chihuahua here. So around this time, even though my business was starting to get a little bit of traction, I didn't have a whole lot of money. However, I thought to myself, I was living in San Francisco at the time. I thought to myself, the best thing I can do for my business right now is move to Los Angeles, which I did. The reason I wanted to move to Los Angeles is because I wanted to compete against all the major pickup companies. Especially RSD. RSD was out there. I believe they were still running like mystery boot camps out there. And there were a few other players out there in Southern California. And I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to get involved because I'm like, I got to do it now, right? It's now or never. I wasn't getting any younger either. I just entered my early 40s, put it that way. I was like 41 or 42. Got to get out there. And so I did. I went out there. I ended up selling my Mercedes. That gave me a little bit of money, but I had so many miles on that car. I didn't get much for it. I was just kind of desperate to get rid of it. But I sold that car. I'd put the money in my bank account, to help me kind of get through the first few months living out there, being a new city and whatnot. So packed it all up. I had one other car, which was kind of like my Thrasher car. It was a 92 Jeep Cherokee Laredo, which I still miss that car. I love that car. A lot of memories in that car, especially with Cash and Gizmo. Sleeping in that car, being homeless in that car. I would like to find that car, and I tried to Google, like I put in my VIN number. I still have my VIN number and my old registration, so I tried to Google it, and the guy that I ended up selling it to in Los Angeles, he just passed away recently, like a year ago. So I don't know. I'll find a way to get it. Regardless, we go out to LA. Me, Cash, and Gizmo. We load up the 92 Jeep Cherokee Laredo. And I remember I didn't really tell my folks because they were already disappointed in me for leaving my corporate job. And my dad was kind of like, aha, see, left your corporate job. See, now you're broke. See, now, I was tired of it. And I didn't want to tell anybody else what I was doing or why, because I knew I wasn't going to get a positive response. I'm going to LA to teach pickup, man. What? You're 40 something years old. Grow up. So yeah, I loaded it up, got in the 92 Jeep Jeep Cherokee Laredo. It wasn't Grand Cherokee. And we got on Highway 5 and started heading towards LA. I packed up as much as I could in the back of my Laredo, which was basically filled up the car. I didn't have much stuff. I mean, fortunately, a lot of my stuff was already in storage. And I had a very tiny storage, so it's not like I could fit that stuff in there. But I got all my pickup gear, my rings, all my cool like PUA clothes I had at the time. I still have them, like leather flame boots, because that's how we used to dress back in the day, right? Pretty outlandish. I had all my like gear ready to go and compete against the best in the world. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to take down Tyler, Julian, Todd, all those guys. I wanted to compete against them. Had all that gear in the back of my Jeep Cherokee and headed south, son. Headed south. And I remember playing Audio Slave, I Am the Highway. Slave, I Am the Highway. It just felt so good. I felt so good. I felt like I was really doing something with my life. it was a feeling that I didn't get from my corporate job when I was making really good money and just bought my Mercedes and everything. I felt like I was going in the right direction, even though I had no more money left and I had no business going to LA. I remember we arrived in the morning and didn't really have a place to stay. So I was like, okay, and I kind of Googled for, hotels and motels, and the cheapest one that I could find was all the way out in Calabasas. It was a Good Night Inn. That was like $70, and I'm like, okay, we'll do the Good Night Inn later in the week, guys. I was talking to my dogs, Cash and Gizmo. For right now, we're gonna stay in the car, right? And I mean, it wasn't that bad because I would park next to a park, like in Studio City. So I would park next to a park, and Studio City's super safe. I ended up moving to Sherman Oaks, which is the next town over from Studio City. But at the time, when we were living in the car, I would just park next to the park, and then anytime these guys needed to get out and pee, we'd just jump out and pee, right? Simple as that. I would go to the Ralph's supermarket in Studio City. I remember, like, when I would go in there and do my grocery shopping, if there were women in there that I could pick up and film, I would do it. Gonna do an approach real quick here at Ralph's. Speak English, by any chance?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I thought you were cute. Okay.
Aww.
What's your name?
Sweet. My name's Sarah.
Sarah? Matt. I had a lot of grocery store infield back then because it was kind of tough to like get to a club and like leave my car and leave the dogs in the cars. I mean, I didn't feel comfortable doing that. LA is a new town and I didn't want to come back and my windows are broken, my animals are gone. So I would just do day game, and I would just kind of go to places where I could see my car and make sure the kids are okay here. But I did a lot of grocery store game at Ralph's and got some success there, and I would film that and I would upload that to my channel. All those, by the way, have been removed by YouTube. Thank you very much. YouTube started banning infield pickup videos back in 2019. You could Google it. They started banning pickup channels. I really thought that was the end of my channel, by the way. I got some warnings from them. The infields that I had were pretty innocent compared to what other guys were filming, like taking these girls home to their apartments and all this and filming. I mean, I was more respectful than that, right? I was not doing that to these women. There were a lot of infields later on where I just was cold approaching with my camera, and I would talk to the chick and go, hey, we're on camera here. Is this okay with you? Yeah, that's fine. Because of YouTube, right? And even those, they were like, take those down. We're gonna strike your channel. Oh my goodness gracious, man. So even those had to come down. Anyway, I'm getting too far ahead of my story here. Regardless, at the time I was filming my grocery store infields, and those seemed to be enough to get people to my channel, get people to my content, get people in my program. So the business was slowly building at that time, and I was starting to accumulate more money in my account. However, I didn't know when this was going to end. I didn't know how long this was going to last. For me, I mean, spending $70 on a hotel or motel, that's what Goodnight Calabasas is, was a lot of money. So we just stayed in the car, right? And we stayed in the car for 6 months. So basically I was homeless for 6 months when I first got to LA, and I've never told this story to anybody. You guys are the first hearing it. I was homeless for 6 months when I first got to Los Angeles, when I first moved there. And we were living in my 92 Jeep Cherokee, which was pretty beat up. However, I was really good at changing parts myself. So sometimes, it would have problems, right? I mean, it's an old car. It had over 140,000 miles on it. So, but I was able to change parts myself. I had my little tools in the back of my car, and I think I changed the power steering. What was it? It's like the power steering. I changed the, what else was it? The alternator I had to change. I mean, I'm changing this in LA, 100-degree weather, man. I remember the air con went out. Oh my goodness, man. The air con went out in my car, and I was so desperate. I mean, that was the one time I had to spend money on it because we were dying. I mean, it was like 105 degrees or something like that in LA, and I needed to get the aircon fixed. And of course, it's a 92 Jeep Cherokee, so you can't just go to Walmart and get the the R134 and pump it in there and get your AC. No, it was using R12, right, which is the old school AC that my DeLorean still uses. So I had to get on Craigslist and I had to find somebody, and this guy was all the way out in Rancho Cucamonga. His name's Mike. I had to drive out there, which was like an hour and a half drive with no aircon. Got to him. He fixed the car. He for some reason, because they don't sell R12 anymore, right? They don't sell that. They don't sell it anymore because they banned it in California and other places because of the emissions. But apparently you could still buy it off eBay. You could still buy old cans and whatnot. So this guy Mike in Rancho Cucamonga was collecting this stuff, and he worked on AC. You know, he knows how to do AC. So he's like, yeah, bring your car here, man. I'll do it for you. It's $200 something. I'm like, all right, I have to do it, right? So I had to dish out $200 for that. 250, I think it was. But hey, guess what? Ice cold air conditioning. I mean, that's the thing with R12. It is really ice cold. My DeLorean gets colder, the aircon, than this Lamborghini, right? And this car is much newer. Anyway, got the aircon fixed, headed back to LA, and we're basically living in the car for another 6 months. I did not intend to stay in the car that long, but we kind of got used to it, and it wasn't that bad. And I learned where to park too. It was much better that I found to just park in like normal neighborhoods, and then I would just put the visor up so they, you know, people couldn't see in. Back then, people didn't realize you were sleeping in your car. Nowadays, so many people are doing it. It's like once you see somebody's visors up, it's the middle of the night, you know they're sleeping in there. And I feel terrible for them too. I really feel for them because I've been there. So back then, I was able to put all the visors around our windows and just block out the heat and stay in the car. And the funny thing was, you know, because I like to get up a little later in the day sometimes. I could not do that while we're sleeping in the car, because as soon as like 8 a.m. hits, that sun in Los Angeles starts blaring, especially in the valley. It started like blaring down on the car. No matter what sun visor you got, the car started to turn into an oven, and Cash would start going. It would wake me up, and I'm like, oh my God, it's hot in here. Got to start the car, take off, you know, turn the AC on, whatnot. And even with the AC on, I mean, that sun would really melt onto you. But yeah, I ended up staying in the car for 6 months unintentionally while I continued to build my business, do launches, work with guys, do coaching. And finally, after 6 months, I'm like, enough of this. I mean, as much as these guys were enjoying it, I was like, and I was enjoying it too. I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not like I had globs of money, but I had enough money now from the last 6 months of living in LA and, you know, doing coaching and, you know, doing videos and whatnot, to move into an apartment, which I did. So I moved into the Plaza at Sherman Oaks. It was a pretty nice place, right? I felt like I wanted to just live in I mean, it was, even though it was a nice place, I really picked that place because they had a dog park and a beach volleyball court in the back of it. So I mean, it's basically everything you need. The Plaza was really nice. It had some bad reviews, but I mean, I had a great time living there, and people were always friendly. They had a gym on my floor. I was able to just walk over the gym, leave my pups in the apartment, and I stayed there for probably about 2 years, and all I did was work. Okay. I didn't do anything but work, and take my dogs out. I worked, take my dogs out, and work really involved like cold approaching, doing pickup, filming infield vids. I connected with some other wingmen out there using the RSD forums. Actually, I was like looking for other wings. People were following my content back then when I didn't have that many subscribers. I'd be like, meet us here, come to this venue, right? That's bad. I mean, now it's harder to do that, right? Guys will just show up. Now it's harder because now I get recognized, right? So even in venues when people aren't doing cold breaks, there goes that M guy, you know, people will film me, you know, oh, let's see him screw up, you know. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's crazy because back in the day, I was more worried about screwing up in front of the girl. Now I'm worried about screwing up in front of dudes. You know, like we'll upload it, like, look, M got blown out, man. It's like, yeah, I get blown out every once in a while. I don't always get the girl, but you know what? Most of the time I do, right? I've got a really high batting average, probably like 8 out of 10 times I will get the girl, right? Which is insane batting average for cold approach. 2 of the times I don't get her for whatever reason. She's just married, or she's, you know, got her boyfriend's there with her. It's usually a pretty valid excuse. I mean, it's, you know, it's never like a terrible cold approach, you know. However, yeah, I lived in my car for the 6 months, and it was not easy, though it was fun. I will say that. I mean, it was probably some of the best memories of living in Los Angeles. It was probably some of the best memories of my life, especially having Cash and Gizmo with me, who, thank God, they're still here, right? They're still here with me. And I really believe, like, if you have animals, the more you take them out with you and the more they're just experiencing life with you, the longer they live. This is why, like, homeless people who have dogs that were on the street, I mean, those dogs are always looking youthful because they're always, like, they always have that mental stimulation because they're always out. They're not, like, trapped in the home. However, during those 6 months where I was living in the car and I was homeless, it wasn't like I was completely broke. I guess I could have, like, got an apartment back then, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to take that risk of losing the money that I had gotten from selling my Mercedes, and the small amount of money that I gotten from just launching my business and doing some coaching and stuff. I didn't want to lose that. I just didn't want to lose that and be stuck in this apartment with a 1-year lease. So I wanted to kind of feel things out first. I mean, the right thing to do probably would have been to just stay in San Francisco for a little while longer, where I had more resources. I had my family I could have stayed with for 6 more months while I continued to build my business. But I felt like I needed a fire under my belly. I felt like I needed some pressure on me. I felt like, and I didn't want to be in San Francisco anymore. I had, lived in San Francisco all my life, born and raised there. I wanted to move on. And I felt like that was the peak of pickup artistry. I felt like it's now or never. And it was, right? It was a peak of pickup artistry, because shortly after that, there was a big scandal that happened with Julian from RSD. He was on CNN. He just went too far, and it started to hurt our community. It was crazy. All this during the time that I had just gotten to LA. So, I mean, you can imagine. However, I just kept pounding the pavement. I just kept moving forward. And those 6 months were not easy. But again, like I said, they were fun. I was able to save money just living in the car. I didn't have to pay rent, right? All I had to pay for really was gas. And we didn't just stay in Studio City. I mean, we trailed out to, like, Huntington Beach, Laguna Beach, Santa Barbara. We were pretty much all over Southern California because we're staying in the car. We could stay anywhere. I remember we stayed in Laguna Beach a few times right in front of the beach. It was awesome, right? People are paying like tens of millions to live up in the hills to see this beach view. We're just living in my 92 Jeep Cherokee going, man, waking up to this beautiful view of the beach, right? Especially when the summer hit and it started to get really hot. We had to stay by the coast because it's obviously cooler when you're by the coast, right? I grew up in front of the ocean beach, so I know that. I understand that. So my first thought, like, once it's really started to get hot, was go to Santa Barbara, go to Huntington Beach, and go to Laguna, where I could stay in front of the beach. And this is why when you see me in certain coaching videos, or even on my IG, especially on my IG, follow me at Matt Cross Official. I'm in Laguna Beach a lot, especially with these guys, right? My girl lives in Aliso Viejo, which is only a few miles from Laguna Beach, funny enough. And whenever we go to Laguna Beach together, and we have the dogs with us, she has her own dog, I can't help but to remember the times. Like, I mean, we'll park in the same parking lot that I used to park in with my Jeep, and now, me being a self-made multimillionaire, I will look in that spot where I used to park with my Jeep. And these guys, all right, I'm getting a little choked up. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's crazy to think, like, dude, I was like 41, 42 years old. I should have been at home with a family, and here I am, like, with these animals, and basically broke trying to make my business work, and oh my gosh, man, it's just phenomenal memories. I never doubted myself, though. I mean, it wasn't like we were sleeping in the car, I was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do in the future? I didn't doubt myself, because I felt like this business can grow. I felt like, a lot of people already knew who I was from, like, doing the pickup and stuff. I felt like I'm on to something, but it was just crazy, like, especially these days, to go back to some of these places, and whether it's Studio City, Laguna Beach, or Sherman Oaks, and I remember the places where we would park to just kind of hide so we could sleep at night and just get a decent night's sleep and then start back the next day. I think there's a Starbucks in Studio City. It's off Coldwater Canyon. There's a Ralph's right across the street from it. And they knew I was sleeping in my car, because I would be in there like in the mornings or in the afternoons or even at night. Like, this guy's always in here with his computer. I'd be editing my pickup videos, I'd be editing my infields, right? I would be doing my work on there. Yeah, I was using their free Wi-Fi, because at this time I did not have data on my phone, right? I was using Google Voice. I really didn't even have a phone. I was just using Google Voice to communicate with people, and my email, because I didn't want to spend the money on cellular service, which was probably only like 35 bucks, right? I mean, I didn't want to spend that. And I really tried to live below my means. It wasn't easy, man. And at times it was a little, I don't know. I mean, it was a little embarrassing, but I was just so focused on winning that I didn't care what people were thinking, right? Oh, there goes the guy with the Jeep and the dogs and his computer. I mean, I just didn't care. It's hard to think back on that and not get at least somewhat emotional, right? It's hard to make me cry. I almost cry over nothing, but I am getting just a little teary-eyed a little bit thinking about it, as I sit here now in my Lamborghini, right? I mean, it just... when this car was sitting in the showroom over at, Newport Beach Lamborghini, this car was literally in the showroom, by the way. They sent me photos not long ago of the car in the showroom. And I kept thinking to myself, when I was looking at those photos, I was living in my car. And this car was probably like just miles away from me. I was like sleeping in my car, homeless. And this vehicle was like at the dealership sitting in the showroom. I mean, I would never have thought, well, maybe I would have believed if she said, hey, that's gonna be your car one day. The moral of the story is, you have to do what you have to do to get to where you want to be, right? And you have to be willing to bet on yourself, believe in yourself, take risks when nobody does, because nobody believed that I was going to do this. Nobody believed that, I would ever become successful doing this. They're like, yeah, maybe he's making a few bucks, but that's all you can get out of this. The pickup market was completely saturated at the time when I moved to LA. I mean, again, this was the busiest time ever, and that's when I jumped in. The economy was at its worst, because we just went through I should say, the housing crash of 2008. So it wasn't the best time to be starting a business, much less moving to LA, but I did. And I was going to the same venues. I just remember like going to the same venues and seeing like the RSD Tylers there, Todd, and the guy, I mean, because they were the big pickup company back then, and just like was like full on belief in myself that I can out cold approach and out pick up these guys, right? Just full belief in myself. They're very talented, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I had full belief in myself that I can compete on that level, which I did, which I am still to this day. They're not even doing pickup anymore, right? Many of these POA companies are gone, right? I'm really one of the only ones left. Todd is still doing it. So we are really the only ones left. And so it's great, because now we get, any new students come right to us. It's phenomenal. However, no matter how much success you achieve and, how big you become, whatever, you always think back to like that time when you didn't have a place to stay. You were living in your car and you were homeless, right? That's what keeps you humble, because I wasn't born with, silver spoon in my mouth. We didn't have money growing up. So, I mean, this is, it's almost just kind of like a dream, but I thank God. Thank God for everything. Nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is possible without God. So I have to give thanks to the man upstairs. But yeah, that's my story, essentially, is going from homeless to now owning a Lamborghini, having a 7-figure business, not having to worry about money, being able to retire. The thing I always want people to take away from this lesson is, money doesn't change things, because I will tell you, I was just as happy living in my Jeep, homeless, by the beach, especially Laguna Beach. Man, that was beautiful. It's like staying by the beach. I don't know if they're cracking down on people staying in their cars now, but I was like literally parking that lot right in front of the beach. I was like, dude, this is a beach view. I mean, you cannot beat it. But I'm just as happy I was just as happy then as I am today. Am I more happy today because I have the Lamborghini and money? No. I feel more comfortable, put it that way. I feel like life is easier, right? Life is easier. I mean, there's some pros and cons to it because you don't have to struggle as much, and you don't have to worry about cops knocking on your door going, hey man, you can't sleep in your car here. Happened a couple of times, right? It's a little embarrassing. As challenging as it is to live in your car because you don't have like a kitchen or anything like that, a gym, it it's kind of therapeutic, right? I like to drive. I love driving. I love taking road trips and stuff like that. I prefer it over flying because I like the scenery. I like stopping places. I like stopping at like gas stations that have lots of like little, snacks and goodies, and it's just fun. In any case, yeah, I was homeless for 6 months, got in the apartment, and once I got in the apartment for those 2 years straight that I was there, all I did was work because the rent was, I mean, now it's cheap thinking back on it. It was like I was paying $17.81 a month for this small studio apartment. And if you look at my older videos on my 33 Secrets channel, maybe even on this channel, you can see me on my balcony. This was back in like 2015-ish, 2016. Yeah, you could see me on my balcony, like I was shooting videos in there. And there was one video too, I'll tell you a little trivia here, tell you a little secret. On my Alpha channel, there's one where I talk about movies, why you should stop going to movies. That is kind of popular, right? Because I called it even 10 years ago, like movies were woke and they're trying to sell you an agenda. I was wearing my glasses back then. I used to wear my sunglasses a lot. So I filmed that one in Sherman Oaks. At the time, I was homeless. I was living in my Jeep when I filmed that video. And I had to like go in the back and just put on my nicer clothes, my PUA clothes, and I got the camera out. It was probably like 7:38 in the morning in Sherman Oaks on a Sunday. Nothing was open yet. I put up my tripod and I sat in front of this cafe and I filmed it because I thought it had a nice background, right? And I filmed it. I mean, back then people used to shoot videos like that with a nice background. RSD used to do it. I used to do it. Whereas these days it's all about the content. People don't care about the background anymore. They just want the content, right? So that's why a lot of times I'll shoot my car and whatnot. So all I did was work at the plaza for those the next 2 years, and then the business really started to get traction. And I think it was like a year after that it just took off, and a year after that became a self-made millionaire, and then a couple years after that became a multimillionaire. And I just continued to add value to people's lives. I mean, that's really the key to becoming successful, is you just add value to people's lives, right? Don't chase the money, chase the value. That's the best business lesson I can give you. However, that's my story, guys. I'm just gonna wrap it up here, and yeah, man, let me know what you think of me being homeless, going from homeless to Lambo. Drop your comments below. I'm trying to keep my emotions in check, but drop your comments below. Let me know what you think of my story. Anything you'd like to add. If you have been homeless, let me know in the comments below. Or if you are homeless now and you're living in your car, let me know in the comments below. Share below, because there's a lot of tips guys can give you. There's a lot of tips I can give you as far as living in your car, where to park. I personally, I would not advise parking in a Walmart or anything. I hear that a lot of people are like, oh, park at the Walmart. Depends which Walmart, I guess, because I never did that. I never parked in an open lot where basically somebody could rob you or kill you or anything like that. I always parked in like neighborhoods where it just looked like another car being parked, right? That's the secret to it. I remember one time I tried to park in the garage at Ralph's in Sherman Oaks, and I got away with it a couple of times, and the third time security guard was like, hey, can't sleep in here, can't be in here. It's like, okay. And the only reason I did that was because it was, it started to get really hot out there. And that's when we started trailing off to Laguna Beach. I was like, oh, this is so much better. It's like we're by the coast. We have, it's a little cooler, and the sun's not blaring down on us. And that was probably the only time I did actually park in a lot. It was the beach lot, but there were other cars there parked, for some reason, parked overnight. And I was like, oh, we can do this. But yeah, you want to stay away from, otherwise, any place that looks obvious, right? Like a mall parking lot. Yeah, I would not do that because they have security there. anywhere where they have security, basically, you want to stay away from. Just park in, neighborhoods or communities. If it's hot there, try to park under a tree or where there's a shade. I remember I'd always like look for, there are certain spots in Studio City and Sherman Oaks where like the house was kind of tall enough or had a big tree where we could like park under the shade, and I knew the sun wouldn't come blaring down on us come morning time. I mean, there were a lot of times we couldn't get that parking space. Somebody else jumped on it, but I would try to get there early to get that parking space, so I wouldn't have to wake up at like 7 a.m. and move these guys to a shaded area. So yeah, little tips and tricks like that. Yeah, and the funny thing is I ended up moving to Sherman Oaks, right? I moved to the plaza. So again, living there, anytime sometimes I would just purposely drive by those parking spots where we used to stay in my Jeep. And yeah, man, you just get choked up every time. It's like, can't believe we did this together. Can't believe we did this. All right, drop the comments below, guys. See you in the next coaching video. As always, gentlemen, don't forget to smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and smash that notification bell as well, so you're notified whenever I release a brand new coaching video here on the YouTube. More importantly, guys, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a ton when you guys actually subscribe to the channel and you just don't take off on me. So subscribe to the channel, helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And for you guys who want to support my work and all of this insane red pill, gold pill, platinum pill content that I'm teaching you here on my channel, best way to do that is becoming basically a subscriber of my premium Alpha Male Secrets channel. Right now it's only $1 for the entire first month of premium Alpha Male Secrets content from me, so take advantage of it. All you need to do is click the link below in my description box. It will take you over to my website where you can get signed up right now. Just takes 2 seconds, so do that now, and I'll see you in my next coaching video. I'm out.